Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roxanne Marcel Shaw, and I'm delighted to welcome you all today as we gather to mark an important milestone in the work of the National System. We have a number of distinguished speakers joining us this afternoon, so I do ask that you please ensure your microphone is on mute. That will minimise any background noise for all of our participants. And please understand that this event is being recorded so that those who are unable to join us today will be able to access the presentations. The video recording will be published on our website. So if you prefer not to be included in the recording, please also put your camera to mute. Otherwise, we are very pleased to see your wonderful faces throughout the event. Everyone is joining remotely because we are in a lockdown scenario here in Sydney. I'm pleased that you've been able to come to the Teams event, and I would like to acknowledge First Nations peoples from across the country and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work here in Sydney, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and to recognise their continuing connection to land, sea and culture. For this afternoon, I am really pleased to be able to introduce you to our host, John Vines. John is a Victorian representative and the chair of the Professional Standards Councils across Australia. John brings a wealth of experience in governance and professional standards regulation to the councils. He was Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Professional Engineers, Scientists and Managers Australia, and is a Fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and of Engineers Australia. Thank you, John. I'll ask you to turn your microphone on and I'll now hand over to you.
Thanks very much, Roxanne, and good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Professional Standards Councils and our regulatory agency, the Professional Standards Authority, welcome to the Scheme Application Framework pilot phase launch. This launch marks the delivery of a significant undertaking by the councils in collaboration with our stakeholders and the release of the new application framework and the commencement of the pilot phase. It's my pleasure today to be joined by a large number of people online, and I particularly like to acknowledge Rose Webb, the New South Wales Fair Trading Commissioner and Deputy Secretary, Better Regulation in the New South Wales Government. Also to acknowledge and thanks for their attendance, the representatives of the various associations and also the members of the Professional Standards Councils and of course the officials from the jurisdiction. So welcome everybody. It's great that so many of you have been able to join us today. At the heart of the new framework is a renewed focus on the objects of the professional standards legislation, with greater emphasis on how councils can work more effectively with occupational associations to improve professional standards and consumer protection. The new framework is designed to deliver key strategic benefits on behalf of state and territory governments, including a clear focus on consumer protection and the public interest, modern and integrated regulatory processes, evidence-based decision-making capable of demonstrating achievement of the statutory objectives, and regulatory excellence through collaboration and engagement. You will hear more about the pilot phase shortly and how it will deliver these benefits and allow the councils to gather feedback on the design and use of the new framework before it is finalised. But first, I'm pleased to welcome as our special guest today the Honourable Kevin Anderson, MP, Minister in the New South Wales Government for Better Regulation and Innovation. Minister Anderson can't be with us in person today, but he has pre-recorded a message and we're most appreciative of that. Minister Anderson is not only a minister responsible for administering professional standards legislation together with his counterparts across the states and territories, but is also the minister charged with supporting the delivery of the national system as the host of the Council's regulatory agency, the Professional Standards Authority. For this reason, he takes special interest in ensuring our regulatory mandate is effectively delivered. He is also the New South Wales Minister responsible for regulation in the building and construction industry. This is of note because New South Wales has taken a bold step forward on better regulation in this sector, incorporating the role of professional standards schemes. The Minister introduced the Design and Building Practitioners Bill 2019 to the New South Wales Parliament back in 2019, and with it brought a commitment to introduce new obligations on building practitioners and to bolster confidence in the industry. With this bill has come an industry-wide understanding of the importance of improving professional standards as a continual process of professionalism. As the Professional Standards Councils, we are pleased to work with Minister Anderson and associations in the built environment sector to usher in this new era of confidence in building and design. It's now my pleasure to introduce the New South Wales Minister Anderson to deliver his message. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thanks for your time. My name's Kevin Anderson, I'm the Minister for Better Regulation and Innovation. Sincere apologies for not being able to be with you in person, but this is the sign of the times. They are difficult times in which we live in. I'm in Tamworth in regional New South Wales, safe and secure, and I sincerely hope that wherever you're joining us from today, that you are too safe and secure, and it remains that way. The New South Wales Government and myself, we're committed to making sure that we support the business sector in New South Wales, and we know it's a significant driver of the New South Wales economy. Good businesses recognise the importance of raising professional standards and restoring accountability. The community expects it, and we know it's important for us to deliver it. In some industries, the actions of a few rogue players or cowboys tend to get the headlines and make a bit of noise, but we want to focus on the good players in the industry, the bulk of the good players in the industry who deliver high quality products to the market. That's why what you're doing here is so important and should be commended. The New South Wales Government supports your efforts in enabling occupational associations and groups to apply for professional standard schemes. Widely accepted and enforced standards ensure that an industry is seen as ethically, professionally, and responsible by the market and accepted by the wider community. I take a very active role when it comes to developing professional standards and working with the council. The changes we've made in the laws in governing the residential building industry are a perfect example of our support for these concepts. Just a few weeks ago, July 1, we brought in and implemented a range of reforms designed to increase transparency, protect consumers, and restore public confidence. The Design and Building Practitioners Act 2020, the Residential Apartment Buildings Act 2020 are revolutionary reforms which will help restore consumer and customer confidence both in the industry and its products. Everybody wins here. And with increased public confidence giving the consumers to buy, it gives quality developers more confidence to build. One of the key areas of reform under the changes are two new registration schemes for Class 2 related work. The first scheme applies to professional engineers working on Class 2 residential buildings. Those are high-rise, multi-storey. The second applies to design and building practitioners who will be required to become registered to work on Class 2 buildings. The changes set out clear standards for registration, helping to weed out those who are unable or unwilling to meet those standards, and set out requirements for continuing professional education in both groups. Failure to maintain these professional education standards will place an individual's registration at risk. We've worked with a wide range of stakeholders in crafting these changes, specifically to restore the community's trust in the industry and the buildings it brings to market. It's a perfect example of the important role bodies such as the Professional Standards Council of Australia play in helping smooth and speedy industry reform and enabling that platform from which to spring from. Strict standards, evenly applied and widely supported, as well as fairly enforced, build competence in a profession. They also raise proficiency, ensure accountability, and help maintain public confidence in the members of a profession and their work. I support and appreciate the great efforts of the Professional Standards Council of Australia and its authority in contributing to these outcomes. The scheme's application framework being launched today will provide very welcome assistance for organisations applying for a professional standards scheme under legislation here in New South Wales. It's a great outcome for everyone and one the Council should be congratulated on. Your actions in encouraging and supporting more occupational associations and groups to apply for a professional standards scheme is something that I certainly welcome. I'm committed to standing side by side with organisations like the Professional Standards Council and its authority and all other industry leaders to drive reform across industry, resulting in better outcomes for businesses and consumers. Again, I thank you for your time. I appreciate the cooperation and working with the Professional Standards Council. Stay safe, stay well, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Minister Anderson. We very much appreciate your involvement in today's launch, and now it's my pleasure to introduce Caroline Lamb, who is a member of the councils for New South Wales, and Caroline's going to provide a presentation about the new framework. Caroline, along with council members Dr. Pam Montgomery and Ms. Tina Lisa Sexton, have been instrumental in the development of the new framework as members of the council's project steering committee. So welcome, Caroline, and over to you.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to share the new scheme application framework on behalf of the steering group that has overseen this project for the councils. In leading the National System for Professional Standards Regulation, we aim to undertake our statutory functions with the minimum impact necessary to achieve the legislative objectives and to encourage lasting improvements in standards across Australian professional services sector for the benefit of all consumers. This is consistent with good regulatory practice principles established by all levels of government because, as the New South Wales Minister for Better Regulation and Innovation has just said, effectively delivered regulation provides for a safer community and stronger settings for business and the economy. We know associations and their members want to respond to government and community expectations of better regulation of professional behaviour. For our part, we want associations to apply for professional standards schemes to help regulate their members as part of that response. I can say with confidence that the objective of all who have worked on this project has been to enable associations to demonstrate the high standards of competence and conduct of their members, and protection for the consumers of their services. At the same time, associations may be at varying stages in their self-regulation journey. For example, in the long-established professions, the focus will likely be on continuous improvement. On the other hand, the focus of emerging professions may be on setting and lifting standards of ethics and practice. We expect that the new framework should respond effectively to a range of needs. Fundamentally, the application process must focus on meeting the regulatory objectives of stronger consumer protection. Put simply, if more associations join the national system as professional standards self-regulators, more consumers can be assured that they are receiving professional services from qualified, competent practitioners, including with access to redress if needed. So in 2019, the project set out to redesign the scheme application framework to facilitate associations' entry into the national system. We intended to maintain strong and purposeful regulatory relationships through improved engagement between associations and the authority. To this end, we've worked closely with an expert reference group and with volunteer testing by associations to understand where and how we could improve the application framework for new schemes and for scheme remakes. Many of those involved in that work have joined us here today. In developing the new framework, You helped us focus on the users, their needs and requirements. Using Agile methodology, we broke the project into stages with you and workshopped solutions. As a result, the new design responds to feedback received from occupational associations and delivers a much more user-friendly and accessible application experience. This required a significant investment by everyone of time, effort, knowledge, and skill, and it shows in the final product. It strikes a balance between universality and flexibility, simplicity and rigor for new entrants and experienced self-regulators alike. In recognizing the diversity of occupations, the new framework provides access to resources which allow associations to choose what they need. Applying for a scheme or the remake of a scheme will now be completed using modules, covering the main components of a scheme, including the characteristics of an association or occupational group which can apply for a scheme. Secondly, the scheme instrument and insurance standard, the scheme participants and consumer protection, the professional risk management strategies of the association, claims and insurance data to support limitations of liability, and annual reporting and compliance. The modules and submodules incorporate templates and additional guidance designed to simplify the application process and to streamline the Council's approval. Pre-application and post-application workshops are designed to ensure the proposed schemes will work well over the whole of their lifetime. The new framework has already met with enthusiasm from associations eager to apply for a professional standards scheme using the new modules, templates and guidance. The pilot phase will encourage applicants to use the new framework for new schemes and remake applications. This will give the councils and the authority feedback through practical trial runs on what works and what can still be improved. We look forward to continuing the successful and rewarding co-design approach during the pilot phase. But the work hasn't stopped. The authority will now work towards yet more enhancements, including a plain English presentation of the framework, as well as a microsite to house application materials. We will provide a web-based application hub that's easy to navigate and download. Ultimately, we will digitalize most components of the new framework. As many of you here know, applying for a scheme or the remake of a scheme is a significant undertaking. At the same time, a scheme is designed to deliver significant benefits to the community in the form of quality delivery of professional services and reduce risks to consumers. It follows that the application process must be designed to help an association show it and its scheme are capable of meeting the objectives of the professional standards legislation. So in June 2018, the Council's plan for long-term success was set out in Strategy 2021. Amongst their strategic goals, councils committed to this project to improve the application process. So on behalf of my fellow councils members on the project steering group, Tina Lisa Sexton from Tasmania and Pam Montgomery from Victoria, we are very proud to say that that is what we believe we've delivered in this new framework. It is ready for associations to use from today, and we thank all those who have cared for it and attended its birth today. John, I'll now hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and thank you for that presentation outlining the excellent work that so many stakeholders have gone to as part of this process. I'm sure that the associations represented here today are grateful for this insight into the new application process. I want to take the time to personally acknowledge and thank those who have taken a leadership role that has contributed to the success of the redesign. Firstly, the members of the reference group for their expert professional standards and regulatory advice on the draft framework. Those members being John Rappel, Director of Professional Standards Regulation with the authority as the chair of the group. Dr. Pam Montgomery, Professional Standards Council member from Victoria, and she was also a steering group member. Lynn Baker, consultant and former New South Wales Fair Trading Commissioner. Deborah Cope, PIRAC Economics. Peter Doherty, Law Institute of Victoria. Rupert Grayston, Australian Computer Society. Steve Mark, Creative Consequences. David Minty, Finity Consulting. Kristen Wydell, Chartered Accountants of Australia and New Zealand. And Amelia Constantinidis, Financial Advisor, Standards and Ethics Authority. And Lee Cope of PIRAC Economics. Your work has improved the quality of the information available in the new framework. Secondly, the associations that volunteered to test modules and provide feedback, those associations being the Australian Computer Society, the Australian Property Institute, Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, CPA Australia, Engineers Australia, the Institute of Public Accountants, the Law Institute of Victoria, the Law Society of New South Wales, the Law Society of South Australia, the Bar Association of Queensland, and the Queensland Law Society. Your efforts have ensured that the framework addresses the feedback we received over time. And thirdly, the Council's members, particularly the steering group that provided invaluable strategic direction and guidance to the project and its staff. And finally, the staff and consultants to the Professional Standards Authority, particularly John Rappel, Director, Professional Standards Regulation, Rob Lawson, Acting Strategic Initiatives Manager, Gabriel Henry, Acting Senior Scheme Analyst, Robert Grant, Senior Project Officer, Paul Hayes, Consultant, Doug Clark, Consultant, Nicole Cullen, Consultant, and John Bacon, Consultant, for their hard work throughout the project. I'd also like to acknowledge the Authority's CEO, Roxanne, and the contribution that she's made, particularly in terms of providing the leadership for the delivery of this project. And so thank you, Roxanne, for that great leadership. I'd like to thank our speakers today, Minister Anderson and Ms Lamb. We are grateful for the time they've taken today to launch the new framework with us. And with that, the new scheme application framework has officially launched for its pilot phase. The new framework, including all modules, templates, and guidance, is available on the Council's website. And I understand that website address is included in the chat function for this meeting. I encourage you all to read the new material and to start using the new framework for your next scheme application in consultation with the good people at the Authority. And of course, the staff at the Authority are always on hand to assist with any further questions in regards to the application process. Thank you all for joining us today, and good afternoon.